Well, one of the main reasons to choose the English language as the first invited language to Festival d'Avignon in this new cycle of life of the festival, who's a festival that exists since 1947, was to try to interpret today the place of words, texts, language in one of the biggest and most important and certainly the most beautiful international performing arts festival in the world, and respond to its history, which is really rooted in texts and the power of text and words and speech, but also to affirm an idea of Europe, of a continent which is curious about other continents, curious about the crossroad of cultures and languages that we find in Europe, and the future of a continent of exchange, of translation, of meeting. Of course, English imposed itself for its richness, for its history, but also for the inventiveness of English spoken, written, performed all over the world. It imposed itself for the political present, especially as an answer to political mistakes, I believe, such as Brexit. So although we're not amazing at building bridges in Avignon, we want to build bridges there where walls try to stop us to continue to dialogue and build together, not only as artists, but as audiences, as citizens. So English had also this let's say, capacity to remind us of a language which is dominant but risks to become poor with its dominance, because we all might speak a little bit of English in order not to lose the train or the airplane or to survive. But there's this tremendous richness and diversity and innovation in English that might be veiled or hidden with this dominance. So we wanted also that the audiences in Avignon, in France, in all over Europe and the world, because there's a huge amount of international audience also coming to the festival, had access to the richness hidden behind this English that we can all sort of speak, this broken European English. And also because I, as a foreigner coming to France to direct the most important festival in France, I would assume that choosing English as the first invited language could sort of bother a little bit the French, and I found that interesting. Well, we present 44 performances and 2 exhibitions and some other side artistic projects such as public readings, debates, meetings, and a lot of participatory mediation projects also. But if I think of the 44 performances that we present, there are 33 creations. There are 7 performances spoken in English, but also some French artists that are creating upon English repertory. I think of Gwenaëlle Morin, that creates after a Midsummer Night Dream of Shakespeare. I think of Pauline Bale, that creates upon the work and life of Virginia Woolf. I think of Julie Deliquet, that opens the festival in our most important stage, Cour d'honneur du Palais des Papes, the historical stage where Jean Villard founded the Festival d'Avignon in 1947. And she's creating upon a documentary by Frederick Weisman, Welfare, shot in the 70s in New York. So there you find different approaches to the English language and English repertory. And then we have a good amount of English-speaking artists coming to the festival, both with theater but also with dance. I would underline the presence of Tim Crouch, a great British reference on writing and staging, that comes to France for the first time with 2 works. An Oak Tree, one of his most famous pieces, created 15 years ago, and his last piece created last year at Edinburgh Festival, Truth's a Dog Must to Kennel. There's also Tim Mitchell's Rodrigues, the artistic director from Forced Entertainment, that we asked to create a piece for French actors, which is a production of Festival d'Avignon that will tour in small villages, in high schools, in little churches all around Avignon during the entire year, in this sort of proximity theater project that we develop from now on. There's also Vicky Featherstone arriving with Sam Pritchard, both from the Royal Court in London, to present all of it, 3 monologues written by Alistair McDowell. We also have, of course, Alexander Zeldin, already well known in France, which will be creating an English-speaking performance with Australian and English actors, a co-production with the National Theatre in London. We have Elevator Repair Service coming from New York with Baldwin and Buckley in Cambridge, a sort of reconstruction of this historical moment and debate in Cambridge about the issue, is the American dream made at the expense of the American Negro, in a debate which is puzzling in how contemporary it is, although it's a debate that happened in the 60s. So there's a big spectrum of English-speaking performances, but also English-speaking presences, protagonists in the festival. I think of Chimamanda Adichie coming from Nigeria to talk about the dominance of English language, but also its inventiveness and its connection to feminism, for instance. There's readings in French of the work of Kate Tempest. We try to have a lot of windows and doors that allow the audience to enter the English language, to be in contact with the English language, but most of all, with these performances and others, because there are plenty, we want also to propose a discovery of hidden treasures, especially for the French audience, but I think for all of continental Europe audience, of the performing arts in English in the UK and all around the world. I think no matter what efforts or inventiveness we have as organizers in the cultural field, it's the artists that open the door to new generations of audiences. I think of the opening of the Festival d'Avignon this year with an amazing choreographer, French choreographer Bintou Dembélé, that creates groove, a mix of crump, hip-hop and Baroque music, also a mix of the street, because the performance starts in the streets, and opera, because it enters the building of the Opéra du Grand Avignon at the center of Avignon. So there's this symbolic entrance of the street in a very strong, prestigious building of the performing arts. And it's also a mix of audiences that is proposed there. So I think when artists are engaged in connecting with their audience, and their audience is a younger audience, that's the biggest key. And in Avignon we love keys, because the symbol of Avignon, it's the 3 keys of the popes that lived in Avignon and transformed that city in the Middle Ages and what it is today, this monumental, amazing, small human scale city, but monumental in its beauty and its historical impact. So there's the 3 keys. So since I've been living in Avignon for a year, I use the word key a lot, symbolically. And one of the keys, I think, it's the artists. Another key is that we do what public service demands of us, which is to fight for artistic freedom, to fight for artists to have the conditions to follow their dreams, their desires, their urgencies, and then do the work of building the catwalks that allow younger generations to be exposed to what sometimes might be complex, but we need complex speech in society. It can't be against or for all the time. We have to question ourselves. We have to see that we need debate. We need civil society to engage in exchange, in thinking together, and there is no togetherness if we are not able to listen to others and then debate. Débattre pour ne pas se battre, to debate, not to fight with each other, to dialogue. And I think art proposes a complex but playful, joyful way of debating. So there's this dream that had Jean Villard, the founder of Festival d'Avignon, which is of putting in an egalitarian situation with even chances to access a work of art, very different people sitting in the same kind of seats under the same sky, because plenty of times in Avignon you watch performances open air, under the same stars, watching the same artwork, so that then after they could dialogue and recuperate their difference after a shared experience and have different opinions, but having lived something together through art. So that's what we're still looking for. And one of the tools, for instance, that we created was something that we called First Time, which is a project that allows in 2023, in this editions, this summer in July, for 5,000 youngsters to come for the first time in organized groups from all over France and other countries, and also many of them from Avignon itself, to visit the festival for the first time, live the festival for the first time, meet among them, and with all their difference, share one same experience in facing the same artworks, meeting the artists, doing workshops together, and living this experience, which is coming to Avignon for the first time, which can really, really change your life. And I'm a witness and also a proof of that. I'm often faced as a professional in the performing arts and especially in theater, faced with the question, what is the definition of theater? I can never answer, I always refuse to answer in just one or two words, because it's my life. So it's my life could be the short answer, but it's so full of possibilities that I often refuse the yes or no way of doing it. I think, first of all, we have to consider that theater is. It's part of the human experience. It doesn't need a function or a definition. It is. It's multiple. So there are many theaters in theater. So you can find as many definitions as examples of theater and theater artists. And it would be totally correct for an artist to do to say whatever she or he or they want about what theater is, what is it good for, what's the definition. I believe in theater as a way to be together with others. It's a way to fight loneliness. That's my personal experience. That's why I started to do theater when I was 14. That's, I think, why I still do theater, and that's what moves me to tears and makes me laugh when I go to theater, is that we feel and we think together. We're not alone. So it's the best way to fight loneliness for me. But it's so deeply rooted in the human experience. When no grants, no state, no buildings, no institutions would promote theater, theater would still be. So the reason why we as society have organized ourselves, especially in democracies, to promote theater is that we're fighting for a democratic access to theater for the people. We're fighting for the spectators, and that's why we sponsor and protect and accompany artists. But when that would not be in place, there would still be theater, because that's part of the human experience. And for me, as I think for many other people, it's a very creative and rich way to fight loneliness.